Hi, I'm Bakhtiar Sanov and you're watching A News. Let's see the top stories shaping our world. Benjamin Netanyahu met security officials to discuss military strategy for Gaza operation. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff meets Vladimir Putin as Trump's sanctions deadline nears. Hiroshima marks 80 years since the atomic bomb struck the city. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly preparing to launch a full military takeover of the Gaza Strip, and the move has triggered alarm within Israel's own military command and drawn condemnation from Hamas and the international community.
Benjamin Netanyahu's office said in a statement that the Prime Minister had held a limited security discussion lasting about 3 hours on Tuesday, where Military Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir presented the options for continuing the campaign in Gaza. However, he did not disclose any new war plans. The Premier's office has said the Security Cabinet will convene later in the week to approve new instructions. Netanyahu had said that Israel must complete the defeat of Hamas in Gaza to secure the release of the remaining hostages. The Israeli Prime Minister had made the announcement while visiting an army training facility on Tuesday, saying he wanted to ensure that Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel. The plan, however, would involve conducting military operations even in areas where hostages are believed to be held, an approach that has raised deep concern inside Israel's security establishment. Despite this, Netanyahu is expected to convene the Security Cabinet later this week to seek formal approval for the plan. Meanwhile, the international backlash is mounting. Speaking at the UN Security Council, Assistant Secretary-General Miroslav Jenka warned that expanding the war into a full occupation would risk catastrophic consequences for millions of Palestinians and could further endanger the remaining hostages. In Gaza, Hamas has rejected the occupation plan outright, saying it will not shift their position in ceasefire negotiations. Senior official Hossam Badran told AFP that Hamas still demands a complete Israeli withdrawal and an end to the blockade and famine gripping the Strip.
We're working very hard to get us out.
US President Donald Trump declined to say whether he supported or opposed a potential military takeover of Gaza by Israel. He said his administration's focus was on increasing food access to the Strip, where 90% of its 2.1 million population are displaced.
Well, I don't know what the suggestion is. I know that we are there now trying to get people fed. As you know, $60 million was given by the United States fairly recently to supply food, and a lot of food, frankly, for the people of Gaza that are obviously not doing too well with the food. And I know Israel's going to help us with that in terms of distribution and also money. We also have the Arab states are going to help us with that in terms of the money and possibly distribution. So that's what I'm focused on. As far as the rest of it, I really can't say. That's going to be pretty much up to Israel.
As Israel prepares for a crucial cabinet vote, the prospect of a full Gaza takeover may redefine the war's trajectory.
The United Nations says trucks delivering aid into Gaza are still facing impediments, and the amount of aid remains insufficient for the starving population. It's despite the tactical pauses Israel introduced last week to allow some safe passage for humanitarian convoys.
Gaza is facing a humanitarian catastrophe, according to the United Nations, who says the flow of relief is dangerously insufficient, especially for starving children. It's despite Israel's recent promises to ease access for aid. Trucks carrying humanitarian assistance still face delays, restrictions, and danger. And the UN warns that the limited amount reaching Gaza is nowhere near enough for a population on the brink of famine. On Monday, the UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says they managed to retrieve 200,000 litres of fuel from the Kerem Shalom crossing. But the agency says even that is a drop in the ocean. Only 29,000 litres have been received so far, while some 70,000 litres of fuel are needed every day for emergency operations. The UN estimates 600 trucks per day are needed to meet basic needs. But in the past week, only a trickle of nutrition supplies and hygiene kits have entered Gaza.
Always pointed out that aid alone cannot fix the problem. There needs to be a commercial supply going in as well. Well, bearing in mind, commercial supplies cost money for people. Aid is free of charge. And we have thousands of tons of aid, including food aid, standing just outside of Gaza, which has already been paid for by the donors. And donors expect that to be given free of charge to the people in need. And it's our job to do so, but we are not getting the facilitation that we need to do so.
According to UN's Children's Fund, UNICEF, on average, a child has been killed every single hour since the 7th of October, not from bombs, but from hunger.
It's very important that there is an increasing amount of pressure now from many governments because of the deprivations, because of the nutritional situation we see in children and in mothers and in women and in the elderly. We mustn't forget as well, though, that on average, a girl or a boy has been killed in this bombardment every single hour since the horrors of October 7. So the facts speak for themselves.
In a rare lifeline, the World Health Organization, in partnership with the United Arab Emirates, managed to deliver a significant shipment of medical aid and blood supplies to Gaza between Saturday and Monday. The WHO stressed that continued and scaled-up support is vital to prevent the total collapse of Gaza's health system. Israel recently announced that it would allow some commercial supplies into the Strip under strict screening and payment rules. But UN officials stress that trade alone cannot replace humanitarian assistance.
Meanwhile, the struggle for water in Gaza is becoming as critical as the fight against hunger. With infrastructure broken, aquifers polluted, and aid that just can't keep up, families are spending hours each day trying to secure just enough water to survive.
Water is a precious commodity, and dozens in central Gaza gather daily around what few distribution points remain, hoping to fill a few containers, sometimes after hours of waiting. Moaz is 23. He used to be a university student before the war, and now says water dominates his day.
It is a big crisis, whether it is fresh water or salty water. We suffer from it greatly every day. God help us.
He makes 2 to 3 trips a day. It's a 1-kilometer walk each time.
We walk about a kilometer and wait for 2 hours in line. How long will we have to stay like this?
Inside the tent, Moaz's mother say they have 20 people and no water left.
There is no water in it. What can we do? There is not a single drop of water, not a single drop of water. Where should we go? How are we going to fill them? How are we going to fill them?
Global charity Oxfam says that most Gazans get far below the emergency minimum of 15 litres per day.
The minimum that a normal person like you and I should use in average a day is 100 liters. That is the minimum standard. The minimum emergency standard is 15 liters a day. So we are 5 times, still 3 to 5 times less than the minimum emergency standard set by the WHO.
96% of households in the Strip are facing moderate to severe water insecurity, according to the United Nations Humanitarian Agency. Diseases such as hepatitis and diarrhea are spreading fast. The Norwegian Refugee Council says the crisis is systemic.
The situation is nothing short of catastrophic. I mean, we see a systematic dismantling of wash infrastructure, and it's just happening in front of us. We see people basically starving, they are dehydrated, they're desperate, and now they're left without water as well.
With taps dry, many now wash in the sea. For countless families, water has become both a burden and a battle for survival.
U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff traveled to Moscow for urgent talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Talks happened just 2 days before a Friday deadline set by President Donald Trump, who warned Russia to agree to end the Ukraine war or face new sanctions. The talks lasted around 3 hours, and the motorcade thought to be carrying Witkoff was seen departing the Kremlin shortly after the conclusion. Neither side offered any official statements on the outcome. Japan has commemorated the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. Tens of thousands gathered to remember the victims and renew calls for global peace.
Thousands bow their heads in prayer in Hiroshima to mark 80 years since the US dropped an atomic bomb on the western city in Japan. Around 55,000 people and international representatives from a record 120 countries and regions attended the annual ceremony at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park for the milestone year. They observed a moment of silence at 8:15 a.m., the exact time the bomb struck in 1945. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba laid a wreath and called for nuclear disarmament.
We must not repeat the tragedy that was brought upon Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It is our country's responsibility as the only nation that have suffered atomic bombings to uphold the 3 non-nuclear principles and lead the global initiative for a world without nuclear weapons.
Earlier in the morning, peace activists gathered along the banks of the Motoyasu River across from the atomic bomb dome, a preserved ruin and symbol of the destruction. Among them was 80-year-old Yasuyo Yamane, who was born just weeks after the bombing.
I truly want the world to be peaceful, but there's just far too much mass killing going on of ordinary civilians.
Artist Masafumi Takatori, who has been attending the anniversary for more than a decade, painted a pastel image of the dome during the ceremony. He hopes his art will inspire conversations about peace.
After people see this, I want them to notice a painting they've never seen before and make them wonder what it is trying to express. Thinking about things like this can become a starting point for thinking about peace, and that's something I truly hope for.
The uranium bomb dropped on Hiroshima on the 6th of August 1945, killing around 78,000 people instantly. By the end of that year, the toll had risen to 140,000, including those who died from radiation-related illnesses. 3 days later, the US dropped a second atomic bomb on Nagasaki. 80 years on, Hiroshima continues to serve as a solemn reminder and a call for peace that remains unanswered in many parts of the world.
Coming up after the break, we'll be discussing how a potential full-scale Israeli military takeover of Gaza would reshape the regional security landscape and what it means for international law and the future prospects for peace in the Middle East. Stay with us. Welcome back to A News. Let's begin by taking a closer look at how this internal Israeli debate is unfolding and why the army's opposition to full takeover could signal deep divisions within the country's defense establishment. The Israeli government is inching closer to a pivotal and highly controversial decision, a full military takeover of the Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to convene his security cabinet tomorrow in Jerusalem, with reports suggesting that the move could receive official approval. This follows a tense 3-hour security discussion where IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir laid out visions for military options, reportedly warning against full takeover. Despite such warnings, the cabinet appears prepared to move forward. To help us unpack the implications of this possible decision, we are joined now from Tel Aviv by political analyst and Middle East commentator Tom Gross. Mr. Gross, welcome to the program.
Hello.
Mr. Gross, let's start with the basics. How significant is this moment in Israel's political and military trajectory, and what message does a potential full takeover of Gaza send?
Well, potentially it's very significant. This war's been going for 22 months, almost 2 years. And I think the message is from Netanyahu that it's over for Hamas. Look, it's long been said that you can't put out a fire 90%. If you put out a fire 90%, then the fire will rekindle and grow again. If you look at other wars, most famously World War II, Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, they were defeated. The Allies didn't leave the Nazis in control of part of Germany to regroup and get strong again, which might happen with Hamas. There would be new tunnels, new rockets, new kidnappings. So the message Netanyahu wants to send is it's game over for Hamas.
Mm-hmm. We know that the IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir and other military officials have reportedly warned against this move. What are their main concerns and how seriously are they being taken within the political leadership?
Well, Israel is very divided, including the security cabinet itself. I think the main arguments against a full occupation, first of all, from an Israeli point of view, first of all, Israel is already very stretched militarily in the West Bank. It's unclear yet about the situation with Lebanon and Syria, also with Iran and the Houthis in Yemen. It's easier going in than getting out when you have an occupation. How are the hostages going to get out? What's going to happen? So, it's not quite clear what it's meant by a full occupation. Is this something lasting a few days? Or is this something like before 2005, where Israel fully occupied Gaza?
So if the cabinet approves a full takeover, what would that actually look like on the ground in Gaza, militarily and administratively?
Well, in Hebrew, they're using a word kibush, which has multiple interpretations. It could mean, a short military operation, or it could mean everything for full Israeli control, including revived Jewish settlements, as they were in the past, the civilian settlements. I don't think that's going to happen, even though some on the far right want to resettle Gaza with Jewish settlements. I doubt very much that's going to happen. 90% of Israelis are very against that happening. There could be advantages of full Israeli control. You're showing pictures right now of food distribution. Israel says it will be easier to distribute food if it has full control over Gaza. At the present time, the UN, in collaboration with Hamas, controls some of the food. Israel controls other parts of the food. And this means there are severe shortages in some parts, though not all parts, of Gaza. So some say that if the occupation is short-term, it could actually improve life for Gazans. One more thing I might add, there are reports of Egyptian soldiers preparing some kind of supportive force to go into Gaza and help distribute food and keep control along with the IDF after the defeat of Hamas.
Mr. Gross, what might be the long-term strategic goals for Netanyahu's government with this decision? Is this about eliminating Hamas completely or something broader?
Well, Israel definitely wants to eliminate Hamas completely. Both the Israeli government and opposition do not want to be living next to a jihadi terror group any more than, let's say, Iraqis or Syrians want to be living next to ISIS, or the United States want to be living next to Al-Qaeda. The big question is not eliminating Hamas, which almost every Israeli and indeed most Arab and Western governments support. The big question is, what will fill the vacuum in Gaza administratively, not just from a security point of view? Will it be the Palestinian Authority, which rules in the West Bank? Will it be some international administration? Will it be some new self-governed Gazan Palestinian administration? And Netanyahu has not made clear what his thoughts are on the matter, and this is the big question.
So how is the Israeli public reacting to the prospect of a total takeover? Are we seeing political divisions or societal pushback?
Well, there are lots of divisions from former military and security and intelligence figures, including at least one former head of the Mossad and at least one former head of the Shabak, another of the intelligence agencies. They say that it can't work, that Israel needs to get out, that they have achieved all that can be achieved militarily. Israel should not entangle itself in Gaza any further. But others say those are exactly the same people that underestimated Hamas in the first place and didn't realize that Hamas were building up a massive arsenal in Gaza from which to attack Israel. But we've been seeing demonstrations against the government in recent days, and I suspect those anti-government demonstrations will be even bigger if, as expected, Prime Minister Netanyahu announces a full occupation.
Mr. Gross, regionally, how might such a move impact Israel's relations with key actors, Egypt, Jordan, and the Gulf states, and even Turkey?
Well, I don't think any Arab government, apart from maybe Qatar, wants Hamas to stay in power, because Hamas is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, which started in Egypt, and there are branches of the Muslim Brotherhood which are severely repressed in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, in Jordan, and elsewhere, because those governments or regimes fear a Muslim Brotherhood takeover in Egypt or Jordan or other countries. So they don't want a Hamas victory, but I don't think they want Israeli control either. Look, I'm not quite sure what they want.
And finally, Mr. Gross, if the cabinet does approve this plan, what do you expect will happen in the immediate days and weeks that follow?
Well, the IDF already controls about 70% of Gaza. So it's not a question of controlling a lot more territory overground. But, you know, there's an entire city, a kind of metro network that Hamas has constructed underground, which is said to be bigger even than a huge metro, a huge subway like the London Underground, the tube system in London. So the war may go underground because there's still big rocket supplies there that Hamas are holding on, and that, of course, is where the hostages are held. So even an occupation overground won't suddenly end the war. There are still thousands of Hamas fighters and lots of weapons underground.
Tom Gross, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us and on this complex and rapidly evolving issue. We truly appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
After the break, we'll be back with the key stories shaping the region. See you soon.
Corridors are of great value to us. Construction works are being carried out on the Azerbaijani side, both rail and road.
President Aliyev and his team are working very intensively. We are also in close cooperation.
It will shorten the time from Central Asia to Europe.
The middle corridor doesn't end here. Here, it becomes a force.
This is not only about national defense. At the same time, the defense industry has now become a serious economic force.
Turkish states are reviving their defense establishments and making a big mark in history in the defense world.
When we look at Turkey's breakthroughs, defense industry, and its strength within NATO, the merging of Turkey's power with that of the Turkic world means the emergence of an immense force.
We focus on paradigm-shifting, innovative fields.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Join me, Nick Summerby, on A News. From my days playing in the Premier League to working as a broadcaster for the channels like Al Jazeera and beIN Sports. I've never been afraid to ask the tough questions to find out what's really going on behind the scenes of the world's biggest sports scenes. We'll be taking you inside the latest stories, stats and dressing room secrets of the world's biggest teams.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Hello, I'm Orkun Amashov. Welcome to Dialogue of Civilizations. No man is an island entire of itself. Our true connection as species go far beyond digital technology. In this exciting new series, I'll be exploring a vast and fascinating history of connections between civilizations and revealing secret bonds that have helped societies, cultures, and religions peacefully coexist. Join me and let's explore together.
Welcome back to A News. Now let's take a closer look at the key developments shaping our region. Baku hosts meeting between Azerbaijani and Pakistani naval commanders. Meeting took place between the commander of the Azerbaijan Navy, first grade Captain Shahin Mamadov, and the chief of the naval staff of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Admiral Naveed Ashraf. Officials exchanged views on advancing naval cooperation, stressing the value of crew-level experience sharing and joint training. Next, the delegation received a detailed briefing on the Azerbaijani Navy structure, Caspian Sea patrol operations, personnel welfare and training regimes. The visit wrapped with a tour of a naval unit capped by a Special Forces demo demonstrating precision and readiness. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump is scheduled to hold separate meetings with the President of Azerbaijan and the Prime Minister of Armenia, according to his official agenda released for the day. The Armenian Prime Minister's office has confirmed that Nikol Pashinyan will visit the United States on 7th to 8th of August. A press release from the office stated that the trilateral meeting involving Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Donald Trump will also take place in Washington. The meeting is aimed at promoting peace, prosperity and economic cooperation in the region. President Donald Trump is reportedly close to facilitating a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia, according to Senator Steve Daines. He noted that most previous mediation attempts by third parties had failed and criticized past U.S. administrations for not prioritizing peace in the region. Congressman Joe Wilson also praised Donald Trump's mediation efforts, calling him an unmatched peacemaker and suggesting that a peace deal between Baku and Yerevan could be his next achievement. Iran's first Vice President Mohammad Reza Aref held a series of bilateral meetings in Turkmenistan in the framework of the third UN Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries, with a focus on boosting transit corridors and promoting regional peace. Aref used the visit to highlight Iran's role as a bridge between Asia, Europe and Africa. Our correspondent has more from Tehran.
First Vice President Aref, who is in Turkmenistan to participate at the third UN Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries, says that development of transit corridors is a priority and Iran supports establishment of peace and security among the neighboring and regional countries. According to the website of the Iranian First Vice President's office, Aref said he will be exchanging views in Turkmenistan, especially on the transit sector, considering Iran's exceptional geographical position as a potential hub connecting Asia, Europe, and Africa. He said the serious priority of the Islamic Republic of Iran is the development of corridors that connect these continents. This important issue will be emphasized in this visit, he added. The third UN Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries is held from the 5th of August to the 8th of August in the city of Avaza in Turkmenistan. Its objective is to offer a chance to the landlocked developing countries as they face hurdles in trade, connectivity, development, and prosperity because they lack direct sea access. On the sidelines of the Avaza conference, First Vice President Aref met with Chairman of Presidential Council of Libya, Mohammed Al-Menfi, during which the Iranian official supported the inter-Libyan talks and welcomed the increase in bilateral trade exchanges following reopening of embassies in Tehran and Tripoli. Aref also had a meeting with the Armenian President Vahagan Khachaturian, in which he stressed expansion of Tehran-Yerevan relations, trade relations, and welcomed the ongoing peace talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan without interference of foreign countries. During his stay in Turkmenistan, Aref is scheduled to meet UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Turkmen officials, as well as a number of participants of the conference. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
Turkey's parliament has launched a new cross-party commission to address Kurdish rights following the announcement by the PKK of its disbandment after nearly 4 decades of armed attacks against the Turkish state. The parliament speaker opened the first session calling it a historic turning point in the country's fight against terrorism. He said the aim is not to change laws, but to reinforce a brotherhood through dialogue. He underlined the need to move beyond a security-only approach and focus on freedom, equality and justice. Turkey's fast-growing defense industry is gaining global recognition. European countries are rearming and the demand for reliable suppliers is growing. Our Turkey correspondent Aliya Aziz has more.
Turkey is fast emerging as a key player in Europe's evolving defense landscape, rising from regional partnership to a global defense supplier in the face of mounting geopolitical tensions. From the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine to growing uncertainty over the long-term U.S. military presence on the continent, European nations are rapidly rearming, and Turkey's defense sector is stepping in to fill that demand. Defense exports from Turkey soared from $2.3 billion in 2020 to over $7.1 billion in 2024, placing the country as the world's 11th largest arms exporter, according to Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Turkey's exports to Europe alone jumped from $369 million to $1.2 billion over the past 3 years, now accounting for 22% of its total defense sales. Poland, the first EU and NATO member to purchase Bayraktar TB2 drones, received all 24 units by mid-2024. Albania and Croatia followed, which acquires logistics, training, and command and control systems. In 2024, Aselsan launched a regional office in North Macedonia to coordinate activities across the Balkans. Havelsan, another important Turkish defense player, won a Romanian tender to modernize maritime surveillance using its MATRA software platform. Recent collaborations that took place this year in 2025 are also reinforcing its foothold. Turkish drone maker Baykar is partnering with Italy's Leonardo, while Turkish Aerospace Industries is co-producing the Hurjet light combat jet in Spain. NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte recently called Turkey's defense space impressive and urged deeper integration with European systems. With both innovation and reliable delivery, Turkey is not only purchasing, but increasingly the builder of Europe's future security architecture. For A News, this is Aliya Aziz, Istanbul, Turkey.
And it looks like Azerbaijan is emerging as a destination for modern wine tourism. The National Geographic magazine highlighted the country's 5 best contemporary vineyards in a recent article.
From a forgotten cellar in Goygol to world-class wineries featured in National Geographic, Azerbaijan's wine renaissance is both ancient and forward-looking. 3 years ago, local guide Raoul Abazadeh cleared the rubbish that hid a historic cellar built by German settler Christoph Vorer. Beneath those doors lay narrow corridors, termite-ridden barrels, and relics dating back to the 1930s. Today, visitors drink indigenous wines like Madrasa and crisp Bayan Shira, alongside Chardonnay, Saperavi, Rakatsiteli, and Pinot Noir, in this restored grotto of heritage. National Geographic's article showcases 5 of the country's standout modern vineyards, each contributing to Azerbaijan's renewed reputation as a wine destination. One vineyard, nestled at the foothills of the mountains at 400 meters elevation, crafts premium reds and whites, offering tastings with panoramic views. Another, in the Ismaili region, draws on native grape varieties to produce red, white, and rosé wines. Guests can explore vast underground cellars and join in the seasonal grape harvest. In the rolling hills of Shamaki, the country's first certified organic vineyard pairs wine production with a guesthouse and museum, showcasing unique blends that reflect the region's soil and history. A nearby vineyard in the same area is known for its pomegranate wines and dry reds made from local varietals aged in Slavonian oak, complemented by crisp whites that highlight the country's winemaking diversity. Azerbaijan's wine story spans millennia, with archaeological evidence of winemaking dating to the 2nd millennium BCE. Though the Soviet era dealt a heavy blow, destroying over 80% of vineyards during the anti-alcohol campaigns of the 1980s, the industry has seen a dramatic revival since the early 2000s. Today, over 15 wineries operate across regions such as Ganja Kazakh, Shirvan, and Gabala, supported by national wine routes and tourism initiatives. National Geographic's piece reinforces that Azerbaijan's wine renaissance isn't just local law, it's gaining global attention. From rediscovered cellars in Goygol to featured vineyards across the country, the nation's wine culture is being recast as a destination for heritage and innovation.
After the break, we'll be taking a closer look at President Donald Trump's reported push to broker peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia, a diplomatic breakthrough that some U.S. lawmakers say could mark a historic achievement in the South Caucasus. See you soon.
Corridors are of great value to us. Construction works are being carried out on the Azerbaijani side, both rail and road.
President Aliyev and his team are working very intensively. We are also in close cooperation.
It will shorten the time from the Central Asia to Europe.
The middle corridor doesn't end here. Here, it becomes a force.
This is not only about national defense. At the same time, the defense industry has now become a serious economic force.
Turkish states are reviving their defense establishments and making a big mark in history in the defense world.
When we look at Turkey's breakthroughs, defense industry and its strength within NATO, the merging of Turkey's power with that of the Turkic world means the emergence of an immense force.
We focus on paradigm-shifting, innovative fields.
Join me, Nick Summerby, on A News. From my days playing in the Premier League to working as a broadcaster for the channels like Al Jazeera and beIN Sport, I've never been afraid to ask the tough questions to find out what's really going on behind the scenes of the world's biggest sports teams. We'll be taking you inside the latest stories, stats and dressing room secrets of the world's biggest teams.
Hello, I'm Orkun Amashov. Welcome to Dialogue of Civilizations. No man is an island entire of itself. Our true connection as species go far beyond digital technology. In this exciting new series, I'll be exploring a vast and fascinating history of connections between civilizations and revealing secret bonds that have helped societies, cultures and religions peacefully coexist. Join me and let's explore together.
Welcome back to A News. Now, fresh reports suggest a potential breakthrough as President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan may meet in Washington this week. As anticipation builds over a potential breakthrough in Washington, where President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan may sign a memorandum of understanding committing the parties to the signing of peace agreement. Now we are joined by Shabnam Safarova in Baku and Richard Giragosyan in Yerevan to discuss the stakes and expectations. Welcome to both of you. Shabnam and Richard, welcome.
Thank you.
Shabnam,
thank you for the invitation.
Shabnam, my first question is to you. How important is this Washington meeting? The timing is very interesting and the peace process is bilateral. But the two leaders are meeting in Washington. Your thoughts?
There were several meetings between leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan in different places, in different countries, and the next one will be in the United States. Yes, it is much more expected, maybe, or symbolic, strategically timed meeting. But my thought about it, if we look through the administrative approach of President Trump, he always approached diplomacy through the lens of economy, economic interests, strategic investment. If we follow his, let's say, past decisions, we can see it. And it seems the South Caucasus is now seen not just as a post-conflict zone. It is potential trade corridor for global parties as well. So with Gazur corridor on the table. The region's economic geography, it seems it's shifting, and it seems United States wants to be part of shaping this process.
Mr. Giragosyan, what do you make of Trump's initiative, which has been well received both in Baku and Yerevan?
Well, I have a slightly different perspective. First of all, the meeting itself is both important and successful, following last month's bilateral summit in Abu Dhabi. What we see, however, is this is as much about Donald Trump's ego as it is about Armenia or Azerbaijan. And I do question a degree of sustainability of American interest and engagement. Having said that, we do expect to see any kind of progress to come Friday in terms of yet a further agreement over the closed negotiations of the bilateral peace treaty. But we are now moving to a much more positive shared victory of focusing on regional trade and transport. And I think the real loser here is actually Russia. And as Armenia and Azerbaijan's leaders come close in Washington, we do see a pleasant, welcome return to diplomacy that is much needed.
Shabnam, a proposed memorandum of understanding is on the table. What are Azerbaijan's expectations from such a document?
Azerbaijan has always been very straightforward expectations in this order, I think. It is clear commitment to mutual respect for territorial integrity, non-interference, it's very important, and practical cooperation. So as Mr. Richard mentioned, I think we never have been too close to peacemaking rather than today, and we have to use this opportunity.
Richard, and what are Armenia's expectations from such a document?
Well, Armenia's expectations are more a return to specific practical negotiations. For example, we need to resume negotiations of the current working group on border demarcation and the road and rail transit links. And this Washington meeting is more of a sideline, a bit of a distraction, just as the meeting in Abu Dhabi wasn't so much about a mediation effort, but a facilitation effort. So I do expect President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan to use the opportunity on Friday, but to continue on a bilateral track without the involvement of third parties.
Richard, some Armenian voices warn against rushing into signing any document. Is there genuine concern about public readiness? Plus, the Armenian National Committee of America is very critical of this initiative.
Well, of course, there's genuine concern. The post-war situation on all sides is marked by a lack of confidence and the erosion of trust. Having said that, I do not see any viable, credible alternative. And in fact, the return to diplomacy by both sides is a welcome development instead of a force of arms or the threat of renewed hostilities. So yes, there is a degree of unhappiness, discontent, but there's really no alternative but to negotiate with each other.
Shabnam, the Zangezur route remains unresolved. How does Baku assess the idea of a U.S. company overseeing its management?
Baku's opinion on this matter is very clear, I think. So Azerbaijan remains open to regional cooperation, but and welcomes transparent projects, infrastructure projects, but only within the framework of full respect for its territorial integrity and decision-making authority. And I think both Armenia and Azerbaijan have very deep lessons learned from history. We know how it feels, how it can be resulted if third, fourth, or fifth parties will be if they try to impact or create impact or effect to the process. I think this problem can be solved within South Caucasus.
Richard, what is Armenia's main concern about third-party involvement in regional connectivity?
Well, the main concern, of course, is Russia's reaction. And in fact, we do not see much of a Russian reaction, which actually sparks more concern than it does to reassure. But there is another third party here that will be part of this process, and it's Armenia-Turkey normalization. It's actually looking at the broadening of this restoration of trade and transport. So therefore, I think this is the first step and in the right direction, but it's a real test and a challenge over the coming months.
Shabnam, critics accuse Azerbaijan of taking a maximalist approach post-2020. How do you respond to that?
I think it's an unfair characterization because Azerbaijan implemented UN resolutions and restored its territorial integrity. It was internationally recognized territories of Azerbaijan. And sure, it's pity. Unfortunately, all of these issues have happened, and we faced with such a conflict. Not only Azerbaijan, but Armenia and all region suffered from this conflict. But the only thing it has changed is that we are no longer accepting status quo based on occupation. And our approach is firm, but I don't think it's maximalist.
Richard, what would Armenia consider a red line in these current talks?
Well, specifically, the one red line that's already been discussed is there can be no issue or question of extraterritoriality of the road and rail links. In terms of the current sticking point, it's about the operational details, about
Okay, Shabnam, even if only a draft is initiated in Washington. Richard, you may continue.
Well, yes. In other words, the real negotiations ahead will be the more difficult. However, we do have a preliminary agreement based on concessions on both sides over the location of the proposed road and rail links. But I do think the momentum is building. and it started last month with a bilateral historic meeting in Abu Dhabi. Washington is not the destination nor the end result, but a further step on the road to post-war stability.
Shabnam, even if only a draft is initiated in Washington, would Azerbaijan view that as a meaningful progress?
Sure, absolutely. You know, in this period, the main thing is moving forward. Even the draft document, it is, as Mr. Richard mentioned, it is diplomatic momentum, and it will encourage the next steps, I think.
Richard, we may continue with you. If an agreement is reached, what could prevent smooth implementation on Armenia's side?
Well, it's nothing in terms of domestic politics or any internal reaction in Armenia. The government remains self-confident and committed to its policies. The real risk and danger is Russia's reaction. And Armenia is still a member of the Eurasian Economic Union, for example. So we do expect a potential of Russia trying to regain its lost leverage, its power. And I do think we need to prepare now. This is why Armenia's democracy is the key to our resiliency.
Richard Giragosyan and Shabnam Safarova, thank you both for your insights and for joining us at such a pivotal moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.